For our next session, I would like to call on stage Mr. Souvik Goswami, the co-founder and chief group editor of APAC News Network. He would introduce the next panel, and we would proceed with the program.
Thank you, Rajneesh. So since morning, we had 2-3 insightful sessions. One session was on banking. The second session was on insurance, and there were also some industry presentation. And now we have come to a very important aspect of the financial sector, and a lot of innovation is being happening in that space. So this session is all about NBFCs, and for that we have digital transformation leaders from the NBFC ecosystem here with us. Name of the session is Analyzing Technology Role in Customer-Centric Approach of NBFCs. So may I invite Mr. Shashank Bajapai, CISO of ECGC on stage, please. A huge round of applause for him. Mr. Lalit Trivedi, Head IT and Chief Information Security Officer, ITI Mutual Fund. A big round of applause for him. Mr. Amit Kothari, Chief Technology Officer of Indostar Capital Finance Limited. Mr. Sivakumar Nandipati, CDO, Fedbank Financial Services, known as FedΦina. We have with us Tulika Sonthalia, Head Digital and Strategic Alliances, Hero Housing Finance. Huge round of applause for her as well. We have with us Jaya Janardanan, Director and Co-founder, Cryontek Consulting. And we have with us Mr. Ashish Agrawal, Director, Resurgent India Limited. And I'll be playing the role of moderator, so I sit in that side. Hi, welcome all of you, and I'm sure for next 45 minutes, an hour or so, we'll be having some insights and deliberations on the opportunities and challenges before NBFCs. I'll say that we'll focus more on opportunities and let's treat challenges as opportunities. And I think digital innovation and technology is going to be the game changer for NBFC sector as a whole. So let me put the first question to Mr. Shashank Bajapai. Mr. Shashank, how are the NBFCs being classified into a 4-tier pyramid? Your thoughts on that, because there's a second question added to that. I'll ask that question to others. So let's have a perspective from you on that.
I'll speak about a digital innovation side for the NBFCs in general, and me being credit guarantor. And I've seen the revolution around the data which flows through the networks, and a lot of analytics which really helps all the NBFCs, all the BFSI, across all verticals. So it's all about data intelligence, and I guess it's about the integrity, how we are kind of maintaining the sanity of the data which is getting shared across our networks, be it our intermediaries or be it our partner networks or our dealers. And at the same time, I guess the business is driving from tech nowadays. That is where we are just no more a support function. We are actually driving a lot of business decisions with regards to the data intelligence which we give back to the business folks. So yeah, that will be my opening remarks on the part. Yeah.
So I'll take the second question of that same part. Let me ask this question to Mr. Ashish Agrawal, Director, Resurgent India Limited. The added question with this question is that how are these tiers using emerging technologies like AI and robotic process automation? And again, the compliance is a very important part of that. Your thoughts on that?
Okay. Great. So good morning to everybody. So I'm from Resurgent India. We are basically merchant banker, and we are deeply involved with NBFC sector, where we are helping them in many ways by way of compliance, regulation, policy, funding and all. So first of all, I think your first question, the layer-based approach actually. So the idea of, I think, government is to bring the level playing field with the banks and NBFCs, so that whenever you see that in the past, in the last 3-4 years, there are 3-4 episodes where I think public has lost money also, even bankers have taken the haircut also. So like ILFS, DHFL, and some are in the pipeline. So I think these things should not happen again. The government has come out with a regulation where they are categorized these NBFCs into 4 areas. I think 4 layers basically. So where the objective is these this small NBFC which are not public deposit taking NBFCs should be in the base layer so that they will face the lesser regulation where they are not taking public money, they are not lending to the sensitive sectors and all. So the base layer is, I think, will not require much of the technology from the regulation point of view. But in case of middle layer and upper layer, I think this is very important. So these are 4 layers: base, middle, upper, and the top layer actually. So in the middle layer, the companies which are having more than 1,000 crore of AUM, they will part of that the middle layer. For them, there are many changes which have been done from the regulatory point of view, and the objective is of the government that these NBFCs should not have any risk in the future from the any kind of regulation. So and the upper layer, the top 10 companies of the NBFCs of the country will be part of the upper layer actually. So where the regulation will be more tight for them, and the top layer, which is I think will be kept empty, but the objective is that whenever there will be any systematic risk on any large NBFC and all, that this will fall in the top layer, which will be under the close watch of RBI. So you see that in this regulation, what they have done actually, they have tried to make the parity between banks and NBFC from the NPA point of view, from the experience of the people who are the part of the NBFC, top management or the senior management, from the risk from management point of view. So there are many things which are there. So in case of the NBFC, the AI and the robotic and all, practically you see NBFCs are ahead of banks in terms of using AI and RPA, robotic and all these processes, because they have spent a lot of money. So you see that NBFC are not NBFC, they are fintech also. Many NBFCs are fintech actually. They were fintech and then they have become NBFC. So they are using these tools regularly in their process, and I think it is helping the customer to get the money at very fast. I think some NBFC are even lending it within 3 minutes only basically. So I think this is the journey which is helping the entire sector, and this regulation I think will help the NBFCs and ultimately the consumer. And somebody can work out the solution where the regulation point of view, because this is a transition phase. So in this transition phase, if the NBFCs, some technology company can help the NBFCs to transform from the traditional approach to the technology-based approach actually. Still there are many NBFCs are there which are having on the traditional approach. So I think this AI is a game changer, and this will help in the knowing the consumer behavior, the collections, the repayment, and can be better than whatever we have today.
Right. So according to Ashish, AI is the game changer when we talk about the classification of this 4-tier pyramid for the NBFCs. I'll take a perspective from Jaya, Jaya Janardanan. Jaya, your take on that. It's on, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. So, as rightly said, see, what happens is in the space of whenever we are in the consumer world, right, whether it's banking services, anything, the need for us to move fast is very critical. And things are moving very fast, okay? So, in the NBFC world, it's a space of the organization that actually services will actually get the customer. And today it's not a seller's market, it's a buyer's market. So the buyer has the right to go and make sure that they take the service from the organization that delivers the best. How does AI and RPA work on this is, see, what happens is the customer behavior is now well known. Okay, he borrows, he repays, there are multiple processes which tracks him. So what happens in the entire process is that's the intelligence that's applied in terms of behavior. It gives enough data to scram through the entire process of a customer behavior and arrive at how this guy will behave in future. Is he eligible for more data? So all this put together, what happens is the ability of an organization, if they start working on AI, the ability to track a customer, service him faster, and make sure that he gets what he wants, track him for his collections, ensure that you give him additional load, all that comes in the process. So the need for every organizations to actually gear up and make sure that the AI is well developed, and in terms of not only sales but also after sales, and that's where most of us really fail. After sales service becomes a big challenge, and therefore it's very critical for us to make sure that the way the service is built in the way of behavior, which AI does, has to be developed. The other piece is that when we talk about efficiency, we talk about cost, RPA comes in a big way. Okay, how do you define RPA? Okay, the way we define RPA is voluminous, manual, and continuous. Processes has to move into RPA, brings down the cost, brings in efficiency, reduces the transaction cost of a processing of a transaction and servicing a client. So both are intertwined, and at the same time, both can work independently. And I just wanted to kind of share, this is not just an NBFC, even in the financial services, since we're speaking in the financial services space, it's very critical for all of us to look at every single area in the space in which we are in, to work on which processes will need to kind of move into an AI, which processes will need to move into an RPA, and keep working on that so that we get the benefit out of it. So today today nobody talks, like, of course, profit, everything is spoken about, but also one of the critical KRIs of every organization is, where are you in technology? Do you have AI that is there? Do you use RPA? Do you use intelligent automation? Everything is asked as one of the KRI for you. So I think, the less, I mean, you can keep talking about it, how much it benefits it, but I think it's here to stay. We have to adopt it and we have to use it. So,
But taking cue from what you have said, I think a very important part you have said is not only about using AI, but you also have to look into that, how much developed that AI solution is that, so that we can have the optimal use of the AI and a better result outcome in that sense. I'll take a perspective from Mr. Lalit Trivedi, Head IT and Chief Information Security Officer of ITI Mutual Fund. Lalit, with bad loans being a particular challenge for NBFCs, how is, again, AI or financial analysis coupled with technology is helping them to look at more prudent risk assessment? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, good afternoon. See, risk assessment is one of the key area for any BFSI, NBFC, or any other financial services nowadays. So even if you are onboarding any customer and before giving service to him, you organization want to understand whether giving him some credit or organization side any loan or anything, whether is there any risk involved or not. So these are all the things. So there are two things. One is monitoring and unmonitoring. Monitoring, you have all data of the client from industries where you can analyze each and every customer before making any commitment to him or doing any financial transaction with him. Unmonitoring, you have things but you don't know the insight. So where you have to implement proper AI in place. Now still I can say AI ML is not at matured level. This is a growing stage now. It has long way to go, especially on BFSI or NBFC segment.
So you think it's still long way to go?
Yeah. There are so many things they can implement, they can analyze, or there are technology companies can come out with the new ideas which can help to any NBFC or any financial service organization. Now I can share one example of mine, a Chatbot example, which I was associated with one of the NBFC. So just I went to their site and just put something to get the detail what Chatbot is doing. So after 4 and 5 things, there was nothing. It has again come back to first, just what you want. So I think technology had also play a major role before evaluating this any technology for the business. Because after 4 and 5 things, it is coming out of the customer requirement. I don't know what whether they have done any evolution or customer-centric approach before implementing the technology. So my suggestion is for any technology head in the BFSI, before you implement, first to evaluate, put yourself on customer side. What, in case you are customer, what you want to know from the organization. I think that are the major thing. Once you know and this process in place, I think AI ML will help you to grow.
So I think put your feet in customer shoes first to understand, evaluate the technology. I see Tulika, Sonthalia is quite eager to answer this. So let's have a perspective from you as well on this question.
So, from an NBFC perspective, I think risk assessment through AI ML is actually obviously now become the core of the business. And to that extent, for us, we are primarily, when we're looking at assessing a customer, we're looking at his ability to pay, his intent to pay, and our ability to recover, right? So I think from that perspective, there's a lot of, today I think the problem is more that there's so much data and there's so much information available. It's more about how you can use it and harness it for your benefit, right? So, so from that perspective, I mean, you have account aggregators, you have like thousands of variables that get captured in your bureau reports, you have geotagging, you can use, KYC tools to mitigate fraud risk. In the housing space, there are digital valuation tools, etc. So the thing is actually to build an intelligent model and then to have enough data and to keep testing it, keep reevaluating it, keep updating it with more and more data. Couple of things that we should be mindful of actually when we're, because there's also a lot of social media data available and things like that. I think as NBFCs, couple of things we really need to be mindful of is, to respect customer privacy and to not misuse it. So to stay within the realms of what's allowed and allowable rather than taking advantage of a customer who needs a loan. I think the power in AI, ML, etc. is the fact that it's opening up more and more segments, to lend to, because it's reducing the cost of risk assessment, it's reducing the cost of collections. You can use AI, ML to nudge customers non-intrusively to repay you. You can see their patterns, their spending patterns, their earning patterns, and time, at that time, get the EMI, etc. So I think it's really, it'll open up lots of segments, and it's very powerful. I mean, it'll help us kind of help Bharat's middle class reach its aspirations. So if used prudently and updated regularly, I think it has great power, and we should all be using it as much as we can, to your point as well.
So according to Tulika, with great responsibilities come, with great power comes great responsibilities. So we have to be aware of that fact and have to use that kind of game-changing technology judiciously. We also have to think about the privacy matters as well. End of the day, we were talking about citizens' data, and there's a very thin line when not to cross over that line. So I think we all have to keep in mind that. Let's have a perspective from Amit Kothari, CTO of Indostar Capital Finance Limited. Amit, when we talk about client onboarding operation and the KYC and all those factors, do you think that the digital innovation which has taken place in last 2-3 years, especially in last 2 years, has been the game changer, or do you think that we still have to go a long way to achieve the ultimate goal of smooth onboarding of customers?
So I think the last 2-3 years have expedited the transformation journeys for most companies, not just BFSI, all segments. But the primary objective of business is business, and for banks or NBFCs, it's the customer. And onboarding is where the whole thing starts. Sourcing is where it starts. So when you are not able to go and meet your customers, where the entire process was physical, where you have to meet the customers, take paper, and when you just cannot do that, but you still have to service and grow, digital becomes imperative. It's not an option. That's the only way to do it. Now, going back to the same way how we used to do it let's say 2 years back or prior to that. And now when we look at how prudent it is for us to have some of parallel strategies, I think phygital is probably the most appropriate today. But is that the end of the road? Definitely not. I think one thing that I have learned personally over the last decades working in this industry is never say technology is enough, because there's always something more that can be done. There's always a better way to do it. There's always a faster way to do it. There's a smarter way to do it. And specifically when you talk about BFS, when you talk about customers, when you talk about data security, when you talk about KYCs, so take KYC for example, it doesn't just end at knowing your customer. There are several pillars to that. One is the compliance aspect. One is actually gathering data about the customers that you need to be sharing with your regulatory bodies on a regular basis. One is to do your own due diligence to see where your customer fits, which is the right segment you want to place him. How do you define your the customer lifetime value of whatever you know about the customer? It could be through primary sources. It could be through secondary sources of data. It could be alternate data. AI will play a role because it will now start telling you a little more about the customer than what is known outside. You don't have to just go and look at a Facebook to find out what is the customer up to. You can now start building your own models to enrich data on top of that. So you can use commoditized data and then further use it in your own ecosystem to decide what I think this customer could be doing, could be needing, where he or she is in their own lifestyle, and start coming up with your upselling, cross-selling initiatives to further increase the pocket size from the customer. The other aspect of this whole thing is not just ending at due diligence in the regulatory bit, but how would you continue to monitor the customer movement? How you would be required to do regular reporting. If you have taken a housing loan, you are a customer for good 10, 15 years, you have to continue to report information to regulatory bodies, which is pretty static. I think everybody's figured a way to automate it. It's happening, machines do the job, you don't lose your sleep over it. But would you know, if it would be smarter for us to know if there's a customer who's defaulted once, what's the likelihood of him or her defaulting in the next one? How is the DPD movement happening? Which bucket are you going to be? Is this a potential NPA customer? Thankfully, with technologies that we have, it's possible. Do we have the right models? If you have the base of data, if you have past track records, you can. But think of a case where an NBFC or a bank or a company has started operations and you are evaluating the scenarios in less than 3 months. Will AI and ML help you? They will give you an indication. There is no foolproof way to doing it because you did not have the wealth of data for you to make an informed decision. So it's very, very imperative to have a multi-pronged strategy there. If I were an NBFC, so if I talk about the scale-based framework, right? Every company is into a transformation roadmap. Just because my classification changes, will my transformation roadmap change? Actually not. I may have to do a little bit more reporting. I may have to do a slightly different kind of reporting. But does that mean I'm going to change how I source my customers? No. In fact, I will start looking at smarter ways to do it. If I know 3 of my competitors doing it in one way, I'll try and, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'll start mimicking that to begin with, and then start figuring how can I do it better? Can I try the same thing in a different market? Can I try something different? What does my data tell me about how that market is going to behave differently? That's where the power of machine learning algorithms come into play. That's where the power of AI comes into play. And to the point that Lalit made, there's a lot more things to be done. There's been a constant debate in a lot of channels. Has AI reached a point of singularity? I think it cannot be a generic statement. There are plethora of use cases and something that we cannot even possibly comprehend where AI can be applicable. What is the degree of maturity a particular model, a particular data set, a particular technology can achieve as an end objective? There are technologies which can take you far down the road and this adequately matured, but there are also categories where it is in such a preliminary stage, you probably would think twice before investing in the technology because you think it's too naive and it is not really the right time for you to invest, and rather wait for a much more mature framework and a mature approach for you to even go deeper in the market.
I think the opportunity is huge, and I really like that phrase when you said that never think that this technology is the end point. Rather, you never know what kind of new technology is coming, but every day something other is coming. And just like AI, there can be future generation technologies which can change the entire paradigm. True. I'll come back to Amit. Let's have a perspective from Sivakumar Nandipati. Mr. Sivakumar, if I may ask you that in terms of leveraging analytics, one is for customer satisfaction, and at the same time also customer KYC. Do you think that it has been a huge, it has got a huge impact in this, that leveraging analytics for that in a big way?
Absolutely. Let's start with customer KYC. If you have to break KYC into three pieces, it's predominantly you finding out the customer, doing the due diligence, basically identifying the customer, doing the due diligence, and ongoing monitoring. Now, for identifying the customer, if we have customer's data stored somewhere, we can make his life easy by showcasing the fields and taking just yes, no, or only required fields can be submitted digitally. And for that, the analytics plays a huge role. In case if you wanted to do it physically as well, for the scheduling perspective, or from the back office teams and sales guys, there also it helps actually. Now, coming to the second section after identification, due diligence. There's a lot of AI ML based technologies where the live photograph has been matched with the existing photo, and people who are tested live with showing the numbers and asking them to say or some titles. So the live video getting captured and recorded, which is foolproof for the audit purposes as well, and done. Most importantly, the TAT is very fast actually. Customer is comfortable, he gets its requirement done there itself. On the other side, companies are also happy mode because the records and all everything, their transactions are getting closed very faster. The third one, which has become most important, is ongoing monitoring. Now, KYC, we all think it's just a process which we take up from the basic customer details and, for the regulation purpose, which we do. But ongoing monitoring is the key, actually. For that, the analytics plays too big role, if you ask me. Right from very small example of, if a customer logs into your portal, goes to page A, page B, page C, to see page D. Finally, he always ends up seeing page D. If you have just show him once he logs in the most visited page as page D, his satisfaction is very immense there at that point of time. These are very small pebbles, that makes customer do the retention with you. In fact, like all of us being NBFCs, there are not big differences between NBFC to NBFC. That makes me to come to the customer satisfaction. So the only way the customer chooses between the NBFC, like how Jaya was saying, this is buyer market, it's only on the small pebbles or small differences which it's there between NBFC to NBFC. And if it's a bigger difference, obviously the customer will take a call, put an email, all those things, with which every one of us are equipped. So to solve the customer satisfaction in these perspectives, when we come for smaller differences or small feedback which customer wants to give, he generally doesn't take the call or doesn't email and all. The best thing he do is chat, because that's what we do. We communicate with most of the people on WhatsApp. Maybe an average study says you send approximately 50-60 WhatsApp messages compared to 7-8 calls which you do per day. So having a live chat is most important. That solves customer. In fact, fortunately, it solves for the company as well. If you keep a telecaller, the maximum capacity for a telecaller per day is 150 calls, 150-200 calls, and he can't do sequential activity. Whereas with chat, he can do parallelly, he can do the conversation with multiple customers, and small pebbles can be solved. Taking one step ahead to optimize this live chat, having the chatbot. We need not have the agent always. If those are basic queries, that can be always solved with the chatbot. And taking to the next step again, now chatbot is one way of communication. We anyway have the SMS, email, call, and all that stuff. Having it in an omni-channel perspective is much more important. The reason is there are different types of customers from different types of cities and different age groups. So we have to understand what customer needs and which channel of communication will help him to get his, is comfortable for him, so which brings more satisfaction in search. So having omni-channel communication is important. One more perspective is social listening. These days, the Gen X, Gen Y, most of the audience speak more on the social. So people also evaluate your company by seeing the Google reviews or seeing your Facebook, LinkedIn pages and try to assess. So that's more important, and that's where your customer also speaks, and you need to have good social listening skills there. With all these things put together, I just wanted to say one thing. Analytics and technology, it's like one small analogy. With one small analogy, I'll try to end this. We all have seen, like we have brothers, sisters, we being fighting between kids and all. I just say, even in a company it happens. Company is like a family, if you have to choose the analogy. There is C hat child and S hat child. I'll say C hat child is more or less customer, convenience, comfort. S hat child is security, safety, strict regulations. There's always the conflict, and there's a lot of discussions, meetings happens between what to do, whether the C hat wins or S hat wins. Fortunately, technology, analytics, AI, ML, brings something. If both childs are fighting for the toy, it brings a pizza, so that the childs forget about the toy and their issue is getting solved, actually. Thank you.
Right, important perspective. You mentioned about chatbots as well. Let me have a perspective from Tulika and Jaya on that. Do you think that chatbots are actually helping NBFCs for personalized and instant customer support to their customers, and or do you think something other can also be leveraged apart from chatbots or RPAs, something like that?
So you and me have used chatbots when we go to multiple websites, right? Why do we don't get used to chatbots? Because you want an experience which is as good as somebody's on the other side writing to you and understanding your problem, rather than giving you a standard response. So chatbot today, I think, has to be and is being highly in an advanced stage of evolution. Most organizations are trying to make it more and more personalized in its nature. And therefore, what happens is, when I'm asking a query, I'm getting the response that I require, rather than getting me a standardized content which used to be earlier there. Why this is now happening and it's kind of transited a little more recently is AI has come in the picture in a big way. Data has been analyzed, and customer behavior through the various channels that he has interacted with you also gets analyzed, and in the process, where the customer is on the chatbot and is asking you a certain question, the system actually translates and says, okay, fine, these are the options, or this is a solution to what you're asking, which makes it a little more easier for me to kind of get adapted and acceptable to the chatbot that is kind of communicating to me. Now, why should we look at chatbot? Because it's a huge, it's like almost replacing your call center or your email management team that we used to have once upon a time, where our team used to sit and write email management or email responses to the customers. The chatbot has actually replaced it, cost-wise, efficiency-wise, turnaround time-wise. It has brought in a major shift in the way it interacts with it. Similarly, even when while we're talking about chatbot, I'll also go to a little step further. Largely in call centers today, okay? Call centers largely have started using not only chatbot, but also robocalling, which is also customized and specialized to the customer that we're talking to. Culling out data, talking to him, checking out with him, or if he calls up, the customer, the system understands who he is and makes sure that the responses are made accordingly. So, all these technologies are great. The technologies are huge game changers in the NBFC market, also in the financial services market. But I think what really is the need of the hour is the way we kind of get them into one umbrella, use one effectively with each other, complementing each other and getting the best out of it. Because each of them independently may work, but if they don't work together, then you will still not get what you want actually.
Right. Tulika, your take on that?
Yeah, so I think RPA, chatbots, they've essentially just changed the way we are able to serve customers. I think it's great, and it's a very effective tool because you are able to personalize, you're able to serve the customer as per his preference at the time he or she wants, in the language that they prefer, and very quickly. So from that perspective, it's great. And it has its uses across, right? You know, as a customer, if I want to evaluate lending products, I have some quick questions, I want to understand better, again, I can use this. If I want to pull out, you know, my statement of account, etc., then quickly and immediately it happens. If I want to, as a lender, if I want to, again, collect from customers, because, you know, finally we're all in the business of collections more than anything else. So if I want to collect from the customer, I can use, you know, voice bots at the opportune time, or I can send out, you know, gentle nudging messages, etc. So from that perspective, I think it's really transformed the way we've served. The couple of things that we need to ensure to make it more effective is, of course, that, you know, it's omni-channel. So we are able to give the customer the same kind of experience, whether he comes to us on the web, whether through WhatsApp, through something else, or through the IVR call center. The other is, of course, again, like in anything else on technology right now, the learning ability, right? The ability to keep learning and reforming the way we are able to service the customer. I'd like to actually talk about this from the perspective, like, you know, if James Bond were to come onto your site, or want to use your bot, we should be able to, you know, give him his martini shaken and not stirred, right? He shouldn't have to ask for it. So from that perspective, I think the whole learning ability of your bot would be critical. And finally, one thing that I find irritating when I kind of use bots is a lot of them, you know, because of the kind of you know, the kind of commercial transaction you have with the developer, where you only pay if it doesn't go to a personal agent, right? A lot of times, the option, if the bot is not being able to solve your problem, the option to be able to ask for a person to service you comes right at the end and after a lot of back and forth. So I think that option should always be given to the customer, that please, you can always go and contact a live agent who you can speak on one-on-one. So I think, like someone else said before, the whole phygital, it has to be backed up with a good physical, personal customer interaction in case a customer is not comfortable with the bot.
So it will be an amalgamation of both digital and physical aspect. I think Lalit wants to add on something on that, please.
In my view, chatbot is not only a tool. It is a virtual employee who is working 24/7 for your organization, for your customer. So where you take care of employees, and before recruitment, you have so many process, background check, analysis, and I think before implementing the chatbot, I suggest all financial service organization, technology have to do your analysis, make proper studies, make your questionnaire, what I want to present to the customer in case of his coming or using the chatbot. I think these are the analysis we can do, then we can use maximize of chatbot.
I'll add one question to you, and then I'll come to Shashank as well. A different perspective I want from you is that when you're talking about handling data, and that amount of data, and that's citizens' data, security aspect is very important. Do you think that, or what kind of collaboration you think you can look at with the technology service providers or the industry, which will take ensuring of data privacy, data safety into the next level? I know a lot of things are happening every day, but what is your take on that? I'll have the same question to Shashank as well. So Shashank can also put some light on that. Yeah, let's have your perspective first.
So you want to privacy side or analytics side?
Both the sides, if you can just...
Okay. See, analytics side, I can say with data, based on data volume, what any technology company coming to the business, I think they have to do. I think if I go with I have some counted business case or use cases, I think it will not work nowadays because everything moving from traditional to digital and until and unless you don't have enough information for any business, if a technology person is going to business to explain or buy my product, I think this will not work nowadays. So they have to do proper their groundwork. They have to do analysis of any business where they want to sell the product. They need to research on industry, what in case of NBFC, what NBFC's requirement in case of data, in case of analytics, MIS, what kind of additional thing you can provide to the business. I think it will add value to a technology as well as side business, both the side. And data privacy side, I think then is a very big topic, but I think vendor side as well as organization side, we have need to define the proper checklist. If my data is inside the organization or is moving outside the organization, what are the things which I want to monitor or implement to secure the data? So there are various compliance and regulatory checklist based on business that we need to check and implement, I think.
Shashank, your take on that.
Yeah, so very rightly pointed by Lalit, that obviously we have to imbibe security and privacy right at the technology front. So I guess security cannot be done once the technology is procured, as I was telling. So I guess it has to start right at the business stage itself. Like I rightly said, data is huge. We are collecting a lot of data from the citizens' data and everything. I have to start analyzing what data pointers are we collecting right at the acquisition stage, right at the KYC stage, where it is going. So the data flow becomes equally critical, right at the envisaging or the architecturing side of the system itself. Many times what happens is that security is done once the system goes into production or is going to go into production. Then we look at the quality analysis on the security side. But then it is too late for us to analyze the data pointers and then enforce privacy norms. Because very soon we would have our own Indian version of GDPR, which would enforce a lot of privacy regulations. And then we will have to start back and forth analyzing what all systems are capturing which all data parameters. So I guess that is one side. And secondly, as I said, security also cannot sit outside the entire IT ecosystem. It has to go and gel in, as that's what we are seeing as SecOps is getting generated, or DevSecOps is going ahead on the IT ecosystem side. So security is sitting along with the developers, along with the operations, to analyze what all security gatekeepers or security controls need to be implemented, as well as operational side also. When our internal folks are trying to analyze business data, which all data parameters have to be masked, which all data pointers need to be, can be shared with the call center supports. Because ideally, the data leakages and whatever we have seen are usually due to internal mistakes. Major reports have been filed, and they have been investigated, has been come to know that there are internal mishandling or internal misconfigurations which lead to major data breaches. So that is where we need to keep on analyzing at what all security parameters have to be kept in, and right at the design stage, not at the later stage. So that is where it is going as of now.
Right. Great insights by both Lalit and Shashank. Let me ask a question to Mr. Amit. Amit, where do you see 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line the digital transformation ecosystem or the paradigm heading towards for the NBFCs? Do you see that, as Tulika and others were saying, that it will be more of physical rather than only physical or digital? Or do you think that some game-changing innovation is on the anvil? Your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great question. It's lovely to answer that, because that's where you get a free mind to speak whatever you think like. But on the serious note, I think perennially the next 2-3 years are always beautiful for a technology guy, for somebody who comes from technology background, because your business needs keep evolving, your business paradigm keeps changing. And if you are in a country like India where there's so much impetus on growth, the economy is going strong, there's impetus from the regulatory bodies on tighter governance, which means you have to have more technologies to strengthen the way how things are done. So I think a lot of focus is going to happen on how you tighten the way how you do your business, how you run your business. It's not just going to be about how you acquire or how fast you acquire a customer, but it's what is going to be important is how you ensure that your customers stay with you, how you service your customers, how you make sure that your customer attrition is minimalistic. Data, every company today has now realized the importance of data. Big data has just transformed the landscape. Every company is sitting on a wealth of data. So everybody's now started talking about how you want to have your data storage, your security, etc. But more often than not, what I think companies fail is to understand you need to have an extremely robust data architecture. You need to have your right set of security frameworks in place to ensure that your data stays secure, it stays with you. There's so many strategies that you need to apply. And that's where I think a lot of transformation and impetus should be happening. There's risk to your data in transit. There's risk to your data in storage. There's risk to your data over the wire, within your network, outside your network, with a third party. Bring in cases like where you have an account aggregator framework coming into play, where data which has been intrinsically yours as a company is now suddenly being shared with a competitor, though with a consent framework, though with a regulated framework, but it's still going out. So there's so much of information that's flowing across the ecosystem. I think I envision a lot of focus and impetus to happen on the security of data, the security of your processes, security of information that's going out. People will be wise enough to have their security beefed up to a great extent. Reduce your attack areas, surface areas should be dramatically reduced. Tighten your perimeters. You're more prone to a ransomware attack than you ever were. People are talking ransomwares like it's anybody's business. You and I would have been worried about just a basic virus infecting your computers. The same is happening with ransomware, and some of these are extremely detrimental to your business. So I think a lot of focus will have to be on that. Transformation on the business side will continue to happen. Newer business models will arrive. We have a unicorn every few days, which is a testimony to the fact that there are so many more people thinking about what is a new way to do business in the country, what's a new segment that you can target, what's a new product that you can bring to the customers. And one of the most important things where all this technology landscape will play a role is how you can make your organizations leaner and meaner by leveraging technology inwards. All the technology that you're talking about, servicing your end customers eventually has to be played into the hands of your own employees, your own workforce. If I want to grow from a 10,000 customer base to a 25,000 customer base, does that mean that I'm also going to increase my workforce by 50, 60%? Actually not. I'm constantly thinking about how my workforce can be made smarter to handle increased load, increased growth, increased business, and with more and more regulations, I would probably look at how I can have more technology play a role in trying to cover all these bases. So be it a customer, be it my operational efficiencies, be it my cost efficiencies, be it my security. There's an entire paradigm of areas where we will have to start focusing on. And I think innovation to me will come from all the areas. It cannot be on a single track. It cannot be in one direction. It will have to be all encompassing. And only those companies who will be able to leverage all of them in their own unique ways to balance their current state and their to-be state are the ones who will truly be successful and who will be able to continue to grow at a faster pace.
Let's embrace
I'd like to add a point there.
Yeah,
I think
quickly.
from a future perspective, of course, hyper-personalization and all that is there. But I think the whole experience is going to be a big thing. So, gamification is going to be big in the future, whether it's, gamification as a process in terms of applying the loan, how well you make it, gamification in terms of customer engagement, how you gamify the whole thing of him spending more, buying more, all that, gamification and learning for employees, increasing their productivity, everything. So I think from a 5-10 year down the line perspective, I think gamification is going to be a huge technology development.
I think taking cue from what Amit and Tulika said, one is that let's be ready for embracing the innovation from multi-dimensions and think big or go home. I think that's how we can also summarize both of your vision. Shiva, your thoughts on the future quickly, a minute to you.
I'll just take in another dimension. I think there is a theory which is going on. Keyboards will be gone in a decade. So it's more of voice. Now, if you see, most of young generation, teenagers, they feel proud to use the voice, asking Google in their mobiles or, at Google Home, Siri, Alexa, all those. Whereas, elder generation feels little, shy, if I have to put exactly. So, but the perspective is going to change. Voice is going to come a lot, be it that has already penetrated in the company and industries, be it as voice blast or voice bots and all. So voice is one thing which I see. And moreover, there's a bright future for NBFCs because India is turning more from a savings to consumption-based organization. So one more dimension which I want to add was voice.
Voice. Indeed, we can already see kind of interventions being done, playing with the voice technology, and a lot of transformation is already happening, even in health sector also, if you talk about voice related solutions. We are talking about future. I'll ask the last question to Ashish. Ashish, is co-lending the future, or do you have any other perspective on that?
Great, I think right question at the right time. So anybody aware what is co-lending from the audience? I think because in the newspaper you are seeing on daily basis that this NBFC has tied up with this co-lending. So daily basis you will see one news is coming in the newspaper. So what is co-lending between banks and NBFC? Anybody can give any thought on that? Okay. So yeah, please. Yeah, so it's a joint loan by the banks and NBFC. So I think it was prevalent earlier where the two banks were joining hands and then lending actually. But it was not there in the country where the NBFC and banks were joining together and giving the loan to the borrower actually. So I think you see the banks have a lot of money, the public money there. NBFC has the ability to lend. They have the methods of assessment of the borrower, how to underwrite the borrower of informal income borrowers. Then they have the reach also and the collection, because NBFC business is not the lending business actually, it's a collection business. Somebody who can lend and collect the money, he will be the winner in this game actually. So the RBI or the government discussed a lot and then they have come out with a solution where they said that banks have money, NBFC have all these things, why can't they join together and then lend it to the market actually. But for this, the major requirement is digital. Digital, if what we are talking, this chatbot and all these things basically, without digital, this co-lending cannot happen actually. So you see in NBFC business, the problem was money, which has been solved. For banks, the informal customer, underwriting of that customer was a problem which has been solved now. Now the technology has come to in the picture where the banks and NBFC join together and they can lend to the ultimate borrower actually. So because we have the CTOs and CDOs here of the large NBFCs, I'll say that within next 2 3 years, this will be a complete game changer on the sourcing of money side actually, because money is raw material. So from your point of view, if you will apply the thought process where you can think of how the co-lending can help in the entire onboarding of the customers, and the treasury part can look at from the banking side where tie-ups can be done, and you can find out the solution. Because every bank, we are talking to the banks, every bank is facing the challenge of technology. So co-lending is taking off, but it is taking off slowly. But the NBFCs can come out with the, I think, some strategic solution that this is the technology which I will use, and the bank will give money and I will lend the money to the borrower. The bank will get everything at their doorstep actually, because the banks are hesitating if they will lend money through NBFC, because front page is NBFC. Something will go wrong, then how they will control it actually. But this can be done through technology also. So within next 2 to 3 years, I'll see in the entire NBFC business, the 20% of the lending will be through the co-lending. Subject to that, the large NBFC should come forward and they should take the lead in that. So it will help in 2 ways. One is the customer will get the money at the cheaper rate, because ultimately the NBFC are taking money from the bank and then lending further. Here the bank is directly giving money to the customer through NBFC. So the cheaper money will be available to the customer. And the another is the banks will get the better collection efficiency. So as of today, if you see that in the retail loans, the bank's portfolio NPA percentage is very high actually, but NBFC are managing very well. So for next 2-3 years, I think co-lending will be the big game changer, and the people who will miss the bus, they will see that why they have not done it earlier actually.
So co-lending will be the big game changer according to Ashish. I think that does bring us to the end of this wonderful discussion for last 45 minutes or 60 minutes or so. If I have to summarize, I think what Amit has said and others have said, Ashish has said that I think the future of NBFC vis-a-vis digital transformation is going to be huge, brighter. You have to embrace technology, especially emerging technologies, in more efficient way, so that we can use it optimally to have better outcome. Also, an important point raised by Amit, where he said that not only about customer-centric approach, but also what about the inbound development of the organization itself in terms of technology deployment. A robust data security infrastructure has to be there. Not going away with bots and other things. AI analytics is going to be there, and as you were saying that co-lending can be the future, and again, technology is going to play a huge role in that, and also voice-based solutions. So I think overall, we have tried to touch various aspects of digital transformation in the NBFC ecosystem, and I'm sure that deliberations made today in this session will help many stakeholders of the NBFC paradigm I'm not saying they'll reach to a conclusion, but at least they will get some food for thought for next coming months and years. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. I'll just request you to all of you to stay on the stage for a second. We are going to honor your achievement as a digital transformation leader from the NBFC sector. I request Mr. Rajneesh De, the consulting editor of APAC News Network, to come on stage and hand over the souvenirs to our eminent speakers for the NBFC sector. I think we can start with Mr. Shashank Bajapai. He is the CISO of ECGC. A huge round of applause for him, please. To Mr. Lalit Trivedi, Head IT and Chief Information Security Officer of ITI Mutual Fund. To Jaya, Janardanan. To Jaya Janardanan, Director and Co-Founder, Cryontek Consulting. To Mr. Amit Kothari, Chief Technology Officer, Indostar Capital Finance Limited. To Tulika Sonthalia, Head Digital Strategic Alliances, Hero Housing Finance. To Mr. Ashish Agrawal, Director, Resurgent India Limited. And to Mr. Sivakumar Nandipati, CDO, Fedbank Financial Services, FedΦina. Can we have a group photo of the speakers together, please?